the fact that he didn't have enough time to really uh, spend months on it or anything, uh, or else they would have gotten to the mountain and it would have been badass. But that module and Expedition to the Barrier Peaks was my two favorites. But the one thing that you mentioned, the additions, and I know
Yes.
basic D&D was kind of a screw up in the fact that they came out with the very first one. We had the very first one that was ever created. It was a paperback, like a paperback, almost like a leaflet like book. It was probably 20 or 30 pages long,
Yeah.
and my older brother his friend had it and he liked it so much he took it like to a library and photocopied off all of it. So he had the entire book photocopied, and he got the big paper roll that you say you make posters with.
Mhm.
He made like three or four big rolls of that, and he taped those together and drew out a dungeon on it because he had the one with big grids. Kind of
Yeah.
like probably I could picture Gary Gygax and them doing for their war game type of thing, and we used Monopoly pieces for our characters, and
Mhm.
he got me and my sister and my dad and my mom all to play this game, and I played a rogue, which I thought would be really cool. And I think out of this entire map, we made it to like the second or third room, and I got killed.
Yeah.
And that was the end. You die, and that was the end. And that was my first experience with Dungeons and Dragons. But I was hooked.
Yeah. Hey, Julian.
Hey, hey,
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Well, we're doing fine. We're doing fine. Looks like we're going to have a quorum today and have a game go on, which will be great.
That's
You say you got the digital formats of a lot of these books.
Yes. Yeah, because there's elements of, like I said, there's elements of design that I like. There's little pieces and elements of story that get. I read through like the story of a module and go, "Ooh, yeah, okay, I kind of like that," and that fits in. My When I start with a campaign, I start with like a 50,000 foot view, and I say, okay, here's kind of the story I want to tell. Then I have to go and look for things that inspire me to get more details. Because if I don't get more details, it'll be hard for me to come up with something that makes sense. And so I go through a lot of these um, different modules and different long form campaign length adventures. And I see, oh, okay, well, here's the story of that. Oh, and this is the antagonist that's driving everything. Ah, okay. I see how they're working. Now I like that motivation. Now let me find a character or develop a character that would have that motivation from that. And so that's eventually as I put everything together, that's kind of how it works out is I use a little bit from over here, a little bit from over there, some stuff that's been percolating around in my own head, and then I put it together. And like I said, since I don't usually have the patience or the creativity to come up with a cool layout for a dungeon, I'll flip through and say, "Oh, that looks good for the place that I want to go." Take that map, dump it in there, and then adjust the contents and story about it to suit my game.
Yeah, I guess I'm not maybe not as patient as you are with it, but I like have I got third edition player's handbook. I got fifth edition player. I got fifth edition and advanced all of the books on digital format. But
Yeah.
I was going to get all of the stuff for the basic edition,
Mm-hmm.
but basic is a tough nut to crack because I'm looking at the original. I wanted to get the oldest one if we were starting with that, and I'm looking at it and going, "Oh yeah, I remember that because they only had spells up to like level 3." And
Yeah, and that's
I
why
was
I
like,
went
"Wait a
with
minute, we're going
the
to like level 20. This the first one doesn't even have that." So I'm sitting there and I'm going through like the different variations that they came out with until I finally found one that had it up to like a level 6 spells. I think it had it too, and I downloaded that one. I think I got the very first one and that one both. And then, but it made it easier when I got to the advanced and beyond because I'm sitting there looking at each one I could download, and I'm looking at the covers of them, and they have different covers, and I'm
yes.
assuming they had different pictures in them. And I remember I would be thumbing through the book to try to find something. Say you're trying to find your magic list or something, and you would see a picture, and you know exactly like how many pages away you are forward or back from the different pictures because the artwork was just awesome.
Yeah.
And, and so I tried to download all of the books, the editions I had, and then I was looking, and all of the books that I had for anything was all the very first ones that were released. Like I
Mm-hmm.
got the player's handbook with the guys looting the treasure,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the dungeon master's guide, the monster manual, um, and back then they came out with like what was the other the monster compendium or something like that, and I was like, we don't need more monsters. You just be more creative, and uh, and so we like sticking to just the three books.
Yeah, I find the three books are a good foundation. Um, but then, like I said, I kind of enjoy being able to have a broader library for inspiration of things. Okay, so um, it's getting to be just about noon now. Um,
Yeah, my
we
alarm's going off. Hey, it's 12.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. This is DM Galabond, and we are waiting the rest of our players to show up for the stream. We'll give them a few minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started. This is the History of D&D uh, session 1.1, as I'm calling it, since we had a little bit of a stumble out of the gate a couple of weeks ago. Then everybody had conflicts come up last week, and we didn't get a chance to play. And now um, it seems like I haven't heard that anybody's going to be out this week. So hopefully we will all be here and be able to get going. Um, so I think we have Julian and we have Doc. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you all today?
I am most awesome. And
Good, good, good. Good, good, good. All right. So we'll go ahead and start describing our setting a little bit. I'm going to make a send out one more little notice. Okay. Um, we are in the little town of Dedale. And actually, I guess I should pull back a little bit. Since the time that you all made up your characters, I have released um, a PDF in the core rules channel, text channel, and it is the updated list of skills and descriptions. And I kind of wanted to get um, some input and a sense from you guys of how you all wanted to do this. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring it up over here in case we have people that will be watching the stream um, later. And let them take a look at it. Uh, there's basically two options of the way that skills can be used um, in this particular game. All of the skills are based on a character's six core abilities. And the two ways that are suggested for people to have skills is you can give them a very flat access to all skills, which means that everybody has a little bit of ability in all skills at first level. The adjustment to those skills comes from your intelligence. If you're a character that has a intelligence bonus, then you get to add your intelligence bonus to a number of skills. So, like if you have +3 in intelligence, you can add a +1 to any three skills, a +3 to one skill, or a 2 to one and one to another. But that pretty much sets your skills for all 36 levels of your character progression. The only time you would gain any additional abilities in any skills is if you run across a magic item later on in the game that actually raises one of your core abilities. So if you start the game, let's say with a 10 strength, and you run across some sort of magic item that now gives you a 15 strength, okay, well, then now that would change your skill rolls for everything that deals with strength or that strength cares about. So that's one way that skills can be done. The other way that skills can be done is that um, everybody starts with two skills at first level, and you can get 1 point in two different skills. So you have two skill points basically, and you can add one to each skill. So those are skills that you would then actually be able to make rolls on at first level. And then every odd level, so again, third, fifth, seventh, ninth, etc., you get one more skill point, and you can either continue focusing on getting better in skills you already have, or you can start adding additional skills to the array of skills that are available. Um, there's a caveat with both of these, which is that your maximum skill can be 19. Because in this edition, as there are some funky things compared to later editions, when you make a skill roll, rolling low on the d20 is good, rolling high is bad. So when you're making a skill roll, a natural 20 is always a failure. Um, so you can never have a skill that's 20 or higher. The absolute cap for a skill is 19. Um, and then so you would have what? Um, you'd have like 18 or 19 skill points by the time you're done. And so you could have 18 or 19 skills that you've developed over the game, or you could have, 3 or 4 skills that you're really good at, and then a few others that you have some moderate strength in. Um, so as you guys look through that list of skills and as you think about those options, um, what jumps out at you? Do you prefer having a few skills and then being able to grow both your ability and your number of skills over time, or do you want just access to everything off the bat and um, then realize it's probably going to be a very limited um, gain in skills as you go? Doc, any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the one that's closest to the way I remember it. It seemed like maybe I'm just remembering AD&D where your skills were all based on say a dexterity or your strength. There's bars and gates and whatever, and it was specifically based on that, and they didn't have um, that many other skills, but they were all of your skills are specifically based on what your roles were, and unless they
Right.
changed somehow, then that's what they were. Period.
Okay. So, yeah, I think you're exactly right. The whole bend bars, lift gates, open doors, and that type of stuff. Um, there's like with each ability, there was a subset of, I think, anywhere between 1 to 4 or 5 skills that were automatically part of that ability roll. Um, and this particular edition, like I said, this skill set was released after um, original D&D launched. It finally got to the point um, where people could go and uh, add specific abilities to the uh, to the to a particular skill.
Well, in the spirit of doing things as they were in the in the world that we're in, I guess I go with. I mean, like if we're doing the very basic, or as we're moving up, it's just whatever version that you decide that we use, and however you want to do it. I'm game for anything.
Okay. I actually kind of like. The more I look at it, and the more I think about it, I actually kind of like a hybrid. I actually kind of like that you come into the game with sort of a working knowledge of it doesn't make sense to have a working knowledge of all of these things. Like, you know, you wouldn't have engineering and um, alchemy and artillery, all three, if you had never had a background, that would make sense for those. I guess I kind of like tying the skills to your background. So um, you could make I'm here's what I'm leaning towards. I'm leaning towards the option uh, 2, where everybody gets 2 skill points at the beginning. And then if you have um, any intelligence bonus, that would give you more. So my example here, Jim the wizard has an 18 intelligence, so he has a +3 bonus. So he would get a total of 5 skill points at first level instead of 2. And then he can um, either add several of those points to one, or he can add 1 point to all to 5 different ones, and then he can make specific rolls on those skills. But if you do not have a skill trained, let's just say the artillery skill, if you do not have the artillery skill marked, then you would kind of make a general intelligence check to see if you could kind of um, use that without um, destroying something. And if you failed, well, then you might break something, or depending on how badly you failed, or you might shoot the wrong target, or you might do something like that. Um, that's kind of what I like. So I like that there's sort of a chance that you could look at something and just almost by luck or intuition figure out the right thing to do, even if
Yeah,
you didn't.
let's go with that. I mean, anybody else got any input or I?
Yeah, I think uh, Julian decided he's going to grab a cup of coffee, so he probably ran to the kitchen to do that. Um, and I haven't seen a response from others to see if they're going to be on yet. So as soon as Julian gets back, I guess we'll go ahead with that unless he has a strong objection. I'll make a note of that in our session log. Okay. So as I'm doing this, go ahead and figure out what your intelligence bonus is, and then as you're looking at those skills, figure out which two, or if you have a bonus from intelligence, um, which 3 or 4 you might want to add off the bat, because each skill point will give you basically a +1 bonus. So, for example, if you have a intelligence of 10 and you put a skill point into alchemy, then that will let you succeed on a roll of 11 or lower instead of 10 or lower. Um, if you put 2 points into alchemy, then you can succeed on a 12 or lower instead of 10 or lower, if that makes sense.
So I don't. I see the skills and I know my intelligence, and it shows I have like a one adjustment. I don't know if that applies to how many skills I get,
Yes, so
or
you'd get
or
3.
or if
So
that's
you get 3 skill points at first level. So you can either choose 3 separate skills to put 1 point into each, or you can put 3 points into one skill, or you can put 2 points into one and one in another.
gotcha. But now I can go off of uh, so
So you can pick
say
any skill that's on that list. It doesn't have to be intelligence skills. It can be any skill
yeah.
on the list.
So the way we're working it, say wrestling is a skill, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, how is that? Say I have one skill point in wrestling. That's going to somehow be augmented by my strength. And
What
then
what
if
is
I
your
have
what
put
is your what is your strength roll? Or what is your
really
strength
bad,
score? Your strength score, I should
it
say.
is a 12.
Okay. So if you put 1 into wrestling, then anytime you have a wrestling skill, anytime you want to use the wrestling skill for something, your skill check to succeed is 13 or lower because you put 1 into wrestling. Um, if you, let's say, put 1 into wrestling but do not put 1 into intimidate, then anytime you want to intimidate, you would just have to make a strength roll, which would be a 12 or lower. Um, and that's another issue is that in this edition, they decided, oh, well, intimidate would be strength. Later on, in later editions, they said, no, that's actually more a charisma thing because you're using the force of your personality to either persuade or intimidate somebody.
But they left it to the DM's discretion. Like I don't know if it's an optional rule where like you could in certain situations your strength may be considered your intimidation.
Yeah.
Say you just get up in the guy's face and to intimidate him, that would probably be more strength than charisma, maybe. Just
Hmm.
because if you're big and burly and just intimidating looking, uh,
All right. Untrained. All right. Okay. So, Julian, are you back now?
Oh yes, I've been.
Okay. All right. Did you have any thoughts, or did you have any objection to the um, proposed method of doing skills? What I think we're going to do is we're going to do a modified option 2, um, where um, where you'll start with 2 skills at first level, and then let me take a look at the scores that you gave me a while back. If you have a bonus in intelligence, um, you would get. Uh, oh, that's the wrong document. Okay. If you have a bonus to intelligence, you would then get a. Julian. Okay. So yeah, you've got a 17 intelligence. So I think that means you have a +2. So you would get actually 4 points, 4 skill points to begin. So then you can, from that list of skills, you can add either 1 point to 4 different skills, or you can add 4 points to one skill, or any sort of combination. And then every other level, you will get, so again at level 3, level 5, so on, so on, you'll get an additional skill point that you can either add to an existing skill or pick up a new skill and say that, over time I've been kind of practicing this and now I have a skill point in it. And what that does is that modifies the role that you need to use that skill. So, um, we were talking a little bit about, you may have heard our discussion about wrestling and intimidation. So if you put a point into wrestling, but not one into intimidation, then you would get +1 when you need to use your wrestling skill. And if you try to intimidate somebody, you would just have to do a basic strength roll. Um, and depending on the situation, we might count charisma as intimidation. Like especially for a magic user, a magic user might intimidate somebody by just like holding his hands close together and having, you know, magical lightning flash, between his fingertips. It's like that might be a way of intimidating somebody instead of trying to flex their muscles, at someone.
Okay, I understand. I think that's pretty interesting to have
Yeah,
it based off of intelligence.
yeah. It's interesting that in later editions they based it more off of your class. So like in later editions, when you're a rogue, you wind up getting a lot more skill points to start with as a rogue because they're sort of thought of as, being good at a little bit of everything. So they've kind of, you know, mainly because they've had to kind of skirt the law, they've picked up a little bit of how to do this, a little bit of how to do that, a little bit of how to do the other. And then bards are another one because they're kind of quite literally, mechanically, they're a jack of all trades. In some editions, they get quite a lot of skill points to begin with.
So I've picked. Yeah, I guess I get three.
Yeah.
I've picked those out. How do I record which ones?
Okay. In roll 20, if we go back to roll 20 and look at your character sheet there, um, let me pull that up. So that's gonna be
Okay, I see skills and skill slots. So I have three skill slots.
yeah. So three skill slots, and then you would just click that add button, and then I don't think it's a drop down list. I think you just type in the name of the skill you've chosen, um, select the stat that is associated with that skill, and then record the number of slots you have used. And um, so under the then you'd want to, yeah, so it's disguise. And if you're putting 1 point in there, okay, then you have 2 points left to distribute. Or if you're just going with disguise and you're going to put all three in there, you can do that. But it's up to you how you do that. And
Yeah,
then what?
I'm rocking it. I'm good to go.
Okay, all right. And then for uh for you, and it's going to take me a while to remember everybody's name. Julian, for you, um, let's see, you would do you. Okay, that's going to be Siren. Do you know which skills you want to take at this point? Oh, okay, you're already working on that. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, good. All right, so when you guys um, get those filled out, let me know, and we will get on with our story.
Yeah, I think I'm done now. I think I picked the skills that made the most sense.
Okay.
Wow, this guy's got. He doesn't have any skills he's very good at. but all of his skills he's decent at. You know what I mean? It's like all of his skills seem to be somewhere between 12 and 15.
Okay. Um, I just am gonna be looking here. So Devlin. Okay, I'm not. hmm. Doc, that Devlin is your character, correct?
That's great.
Okay. So in roll 20 on the skills tab, I'm seeing disguise with one. Um,
So he would get what is this? It's based on is it intelligence for yeah, intelligence for disguise, which his intelligence is not particularly high. So I figure I put one skill point in there, at least give him a little bit of extra chance to
right.
disguise.
Okay, so that is one. And what are the other two? Because I don't see them recorded yet on this sheet under the skills.
They're not. I'm kind of
Oh, okay, okay,
deciding at the last second.
okay. All right. Okay, that's fine. Then I'm gonna go and look at Siren and double check. Okay. So Siren, same thing here. I'm looking at your character sheet on roll 20 under the skills, and I see the one for um, your craft of smithing, but I don't see the others yet. So when you have a chance, go ahead and add those others to that character sheet. Um, if you've picked them out. If you're still working at picking them out, then that's okay too. Let's see. So
Oh, it says stealth, and then it's got in parentheses choose terrain. So
right.
I need to put what kind of terrain it would be.
Yeah. So are you stealthy in the city? Are you stealthy in the woods? Are you stealthy in the mountains? Are you stealthy in the swamp? That kind of thing. So I guess city would be like urban, be urban stealth, or are you stealthy in underground, which would include everything from caverns to tunnels to sewers to, catacombs, those types of things. Okay, all right. Julian, I see why I was looking at the wrong character. Okay, John Hawkwood. All right. There we
All right, I
go.
got my.
Okay, yes. Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, and then I'll go back and take a look at Devlin. Oh, excellent.
Oh, it's got a
Okay.
place on the sheet for skill slots and then slots available.
Yeah, there's I this particular character sheet, I think they made it so that it could be useful with both the original D&D and with the advanced D&D. So it's got some things that some of them that are for one system and some of them that are not for um, the other system. So yeah, it's fine just like you have it to have the skill slots and the skill slots available. Um, you know, the I guess actually the skill slots would be three and the slots available would be zero because you've used all three of them at this point. But you know, that's probably the way that we would record that. And then the slots available would just be if you add another skill point and you haven't added it, that would just be to remind you, oh, I have one more I can add at some point.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we will go ahead and we will get um, going with our adventure. Um, if you're in roll 20 right now, you will see that there's a little bit of a detail of the map of our, or a little bit more detail on our map of our starting area. Um, we have kind of the route connected between um, Hofslund, the human city, which is over here, and Olanatheus, the capital, which is okay, which is a little bit down here for where the capital is. Now, our starting point is a village called Dale, and that is approximately a day's walk from Hofsland to Dale. Um, it's on the border of the wilderness area. It's kind of next to this hilly forested area, and there's this road connecting Hofsland to the capital that kind of skirts right in between the forest and some sort of rough terrain there closer to the coast, um, and whatnot. And that forested area is bounded on the north by Dale, and on the south by a relatively new construct that most people are calling the Keep. Um, there once was a town there, but it has been sacked and burned and destroyed, and was left in ruins for, uh, you know, 50, 60 years or so. And then within the last few years, a newly minted duke who has been given some territory and a title has constructed a keep there. Um, and it's kind of the whole job of the keep is to try to help Dale keep the road open um, between the two cities, and so that you won't have to be sending militia either from Hofsland or from Olanatheus every time there's some sort of disturbance on the road that messes with the caravans that take trade between the two major cities. So we are now in Dale, and I'll go ahead and I will move us to an exterior view of the town. And the Roll 20 kind of has a mind of its own about the magnifying view. So over on the right hand side, you can grab that little slider and either zoom out or zoom in um, to your um, to your certain, to your taste. But I'll go ahead and point out a few areas of interest on the map. Um, the tavern where our adventure proper actually begins is over here, Area 7, the Inn of the Welcome Wench. Um, there is a church that's kind of an all faith church that's right on the road just as you come into the town from the north. Um, this little village has um, all the trappings uh, of a village. Of course, it's very important that you have a brewer, which is over here. There's a jeweler and there's a money changer. Um, the There's the herdsman, the teamster, a cheesemonger over here, several farmers, and the house of the village elder. Dedale is actually run by a council, and the only sort of hereditary or traditional part of that village council is the person that they call the village elder. And that person nominally is the first among equals within the village council, but the elder really can't make any decisions on his own without involving the rest of the village council. There's a stonemason over here. Um, there is a new construction. There is a tower that is being built, and the outlines of a keep that are being built over here, kind of in this section of town. And they've started to make the foundations over in that area as well.
Can you ping that again? My map bug.
Okay, yeah, yeah. This map is being a little buggy with that, so I'm gonna try to ping it right here. It's
You somehow you're moving my map.
yeah. If I hold down Shift and click as the DM, it will refocus, and that's just to help people see what I'm talking about on the map. Uh, so
The problem with doing that is, say I have mine zoomed in or zoomed out, it moves it, and say I'm zoomed in, suddenly I'm just looking at the white border beside the map. Because
oh,
when you
okay,
move,
okay,
no matter where I am and how zoomed in I am, it moves it that distance for me as well. So
okay.
probably that doesn't work too well.
Okay, so I'll just ping it without moving it. Can you see where I am? You
Did
may
I
need to
see a
zoom it.
ping by
You,
near the?
yeah, you may need to zoom out to see more of the map.
No, I got the whole map up right now.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of in the southwest area, or no, southeast area of town. Is where that new construction is going on.
Where right by area 32 there, the yellow section with nothing.
31, yeah, 31, 32, that area there. Those two little hills. The
and
tower.
and just for my center of reference. Oh, okay. The inn of the Welcome Winch. All right. I was wondering where the inn was.
Yep.
The inn and the blacksmith are the two biggest points of interest, I guess. In that.
Yeah. So these two guys, right over here. Okay. So that's sort of a little orientation to Dedale, um, our starting area. And then we'll go ahead and we will move uh, inside um, the inside the main floor of the welcome winch, and of course it goes from a very large map to a very small map. Um, all right, so we're gonna take that guy and we're gonna put him on the GM layer for now. Um, and I'm going to, if you go into your journal, um, you probably can grab your own character and drag it and put it kind of over here next to the either just inside or just outside the inn. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about how the inn looks as you enter. Um, this is the Inn of the Welcome Winch. It's a place known for miles around the village for its good food and excellent drink. Passing merchants make a point of stopping, as do many other sorts of wayfarers, and the place is always filled with patrons. Um, there's a stable boy and groom that handle the draft and riding animals, and those guys live in the stables. There's the innkeeper um, and his wife and their two daughters. Uh, there are two additional hired helpers that are, well, no, there's actually a staff of, inside, there's a staff of two serving wenches that are hired, a head cook, um, and a pair of potboy apprentices um, that are in the place. And as you all first enter the inn today, um, the person who greets you. Oh, I see, John. We haven't set up a token for you yet. Um, okay. Um, did you have a particular token in mind, or did you want me to try to find something that we can use temporarily as your token?
A temporary token's fine. I didn't really have one in mind yet.
Okay. So let's do this. Okay. We'll go. Okay. I'm going to do a slight adjustment here on the screen. And that means I will go here. I will edit this. I will, whoops, use a selected token. Excellent. And then save the changes. All right. And all right. So now when you grab your token, it should be this little wizard guy until you find something that strikes your fancy, and then we can make a better um, a better token for him that's a little bit more personalized. All right.
Sounds
Is
good to
that
me.
him up there in room four? Or uh, trying to figure out where you're placing.
Um, nope. Right here, I'm gonna ping for you, Roy. Right here by the front door. I have you on the board, and um, I have John on the board as well, or John
Oh, okay,
Hawkwood.
we're over there. Somehow I placed my token on the map, and it so I got two tokens somehow. I got
Oh,
I see the one that you have for me, and then I got one over by the door or it's by outside area.
oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so I'll just go ahead
I don't know how I get rid of that guy.
okay. Um. Well, first of all, let's find out if can you move either one of them.
I can move both.
Oh, okay. So I'll just go ahead and get rid of the one that's there. Um. And then are you able, Julian, to move your token?
I am not able to.
Okay. There's a peculiarity with. Okay, that's why. God, John Hawkwood, the medium.
I've never done it, I've, but I've heard that you have to like assign it to him or something. Assign it to the.
Yep. And it's supposed to be that if you assign it in the journal, it's supposed to assign it when you put that token out on the Um, you put that token out on a board, but in my experience, I have found that that doesn't always happen. Uh, okay, Julian, see if you can move John now because I saved it. If you can't, then yep. Okay, there we go. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Um, all right. So as you enter, you see over here behind the bar, you see the barkeep, and you see a serving maid moving around the room. She is right over here. And the barkeep says, "Oh, welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, welcome. Uh, it's the Inn of the Welcome Wench. Come have a seat at the bar or have a seat at a table if you will be dining with us." And actually, there's going to be some other people that will be coming in a moment. Um, so you guys can go ahead and um, figure out wherever you want to go. Um, the serving maid uh, walks over towards the bar, and she says, "Oh, hello, love. Name's Gertie. And if you have a seat at the bar, Nira will take care of you. Or if you want to sit at a table, I can bring you some uh, drink and some food." And she wanders off back into the kitchen area um, after she talks to you. So Nira says, "Oh, what brings you into town, gentlemen? What brings you into town today?"
It's just getting it on the road, off the road for me today. I'm just doing a little bit of sightseeing and seeing what's going on. I would like a big hearty ale, if you don't mind, just to take the dust off.
"Oh, of course. Do you prefer um, the spring ale or do you like the dark ale?"
Let me have a bit of dark ale.
"All right. And you, good sir," he says to John Harkwood, um, "what will you have?"
I'm very weary, so I would like some dark ale, please.
"Okay, two dark ales. All right." Well, he walks over and he um, starts to pour some ale, and he says, pours two mugs. As he brings them back, he sets them down. He says, "Oh, there's troubling times. What with all the monsters out in the woods now?"
So tell me, good brother, what's the local goings on around here? Looking for to make a little bit of cash.
"Oh, well, if you are, then you would want to look out for the village council. They will be meeting in the dining room tonight, and I understand they're to hear a report from Zert, who's been out monitoring the goings on in the woods beyond town. Um, he may have some reports about some of the strange happenings out in the wilds.
Who's Zert, sir?
Zert is he's a bit of a local legend. He's a um, woodsman who came to these parts. Oh, I don't know, maybe um, 10, 15 years ago, and he established a residence in town. Had a family, and then such a shame. Illness took his uh, wife and both his children in quick succession. And since then, he has sort of taken it on himself to um, be something of a scout for the town. He will leave for months at a time, ranging out in the woods and then come back and bring news to the council um, of the dangers that are out there. Um, living this close to the border of the wilds, we always have to be watching out for uh, all of the goblins and the orcs and the gnolls and everything else that wants to try to eat good people uh, if they stray too far from their homes.
So the fella's name is Zert, and he is kind of the town council scout. I take it. About what time do they meet around here?
Well, they should be coming in for their dinner. Oh, in the next few minutes or so. Um, and I, they should be starting to show up pretty soon. And about the time he says that, the door opens and a dwarf enters. And this dwarf says, "Oh, Nera, me lad, here for the meeting tonight. I'm a gonna need the largest tankard you have of the dwarven ale. Have someone bring it to me back in the dining room." And he starts to walk over towards the dining room, and Nera says, Mac, um, come to the bar, meet these gentlemen. Um, these gentlemen are here inquiring about possible work to help out the town. They're adventurers. They're looking for uh, some ability to make some coin around here. And Mac says, "Oh, adventurers, good. We need some of them. Well, lads, you might as well come back to the dining room. Take your supper with us. Uh, my name is McKeith, but most just call me Mac. And I'm something of a historian around here, you know." And you notice that even for a dwarf, he's probably past his prime years and he walks with a bit of a limp, but he is, got kind of rippling shoulder muscles and seems like he's spent years either hacking up enemies or banging on a forge hammer or possibly both. Um, and he waves you back as he begins to make his way towards this dining room in the uh, back of the first floor. And he stands by the door and opens the door here.
So, barkeep fella, if you good fella, if you don't mind, I can take that keg of ale back there for you if you don't mind, and if you could throw me, well, I got my mug here, so I guess I could fill it up. If you throw me charge me for another ale as well, and uh, just on a side note, for memory purposes, out of character here, um, is it Julian that is the other one in here, right?
Yeah, Julian is
I
the
was a-
player. Julian is the
I was
player, and John is the character name.
okay. I was able to like in the settings to put it to where you see I have my name right below my icon there. That way, if you're wondering who it is you're talking to, you see the name, and that way we're not struggling with that. But if you kind of give me a description of what I see when I'm looking at your character, that would be cool.
Descriptor. He's a human male, um, wearing kind of basic cloth clothing. He has a staff with him that's visible on his back.
Okay, give me half a
Very,
second. I got to turn up your volume here. All right.
Okay, yeah, he's a male who wears basic cloth clothing. He has like a quarter staff or some equivalent of that that's visible on his back. He's pretty average looking in terms of appearance.
Okay, cool. With me, you kind of see the same as a picture. I'm just a human. I'm kind of a flamboyant looking fellow with it's more like a trench coat looking jacket with his collar turned up. He's got the top hat, and he carries around with him like just casually over his shoulder or something. His crossbow, just as almost use it like just a walking stick, almost just casually carrying it around. Is not in any threatening manner, but he's kind of a flamboyant looking fellow with a goatee. Uh, he's kind of thin and wiry. But he's quite boisterous and um, he kind of tries to project this image of something great or grand upon his appearance. I guess is
I
his
get it.
persona.
Yeah, I understand. What's your character name just for my own personal records? Because I don't see it in Roll 20. I just want to write it down someplace.
Oh, okay. It's a well we'll role play that out.
Sounds good to me.
So John, is it I hear you're looking for work as well. Maybe we work a little bit together. My name is Devlin, by the way. What's your
Ah, Devlin, I'm John Hawkwood. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
It's a good pleasure, good sir. Maybe we should to check out this scout fella and see what he's discovered, and maybe there's some booty in it for us to make off with. What do you?
That sounds great. The barkeep mentioned monsters, and that's something I'm personally very interested in. So I'll be glad to join.
Are you like a collector of skulls or what's your point?
Just a general interest. No physical items, no treasure, no trophies. Just knowledge.
Oh, knowledge seeker.
I like to
I
imagine
guess
myself so.
I guess I'm more I'm in it for the coin, we might say. You know, got to expand my massive amounts of loot that I plan to acquire. So, what do you say we take this keg back there as a bit of uh, uh, a gesture of our goodwill and see if they want to offer us a.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Is your character big and burly, or is he kind of? I'm more on the wiry, spindly. I guess average for an average person, but I'm not daunting by.
My character is definitely very skinny. He's not a particularly strong person. I think it's pretty evident by his.
Okay, he's kind of like me.
Yeah,
Maybe between the two of us, we can get that keg back there and impress this fella.
I hope so.
Well, if you guys show any signs of struggling with it, um, Gertie comes out of the kitchen and says, "Oh, love, I can grab that for you."
Hello, Gertie. It's good to see you again.
Oh, Dev, how are you? How are you? Almost didn't recognize you. How have you been?
Oh, I've been good. Just taking a jaunt around town to see how things.
Oh well.
See who the new faces might be.
Well, there's some new folk around, and there's some new problems that oh, aren't making life very pleasant at the moment. But I think the village council is formulating a plan to deal with that. So maybe talk with them. They're going to be meeting in the private dining room.
Okay, Gertie, you'll be within shouting distance of the meeting.
Oh, I always serve the village council their dinner, so yes, I'll be in and out during the evening.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Let's adjourn to our council meeting.
Okay, so by this time, Mac has entered the room over here, and he's sort of uh, taken his place uh, at the table over here. And as within a very few moments after you all get in there, um, three other gentlemen uh, come and enter the private dining room. Um, there's this gentleman here who um, who announces his name as Elmo. He is a member of the village council. There is this gentleman here who announces his name as Tuck, and he is a cleric from the All Faiths temple that is over there. And then there is a very rangery, woodsy type of person who announces himself as Zert. Um, and Zert just kind of looks like the kind of person you'd expect to be out in the woods. His his beard looks like it's been trimmed up, but it is kind of bushy. His uh, leather armor is kind of hues of browns and greens. So you would imagine that as he's out in the woods, he can kind of blend in very well with places that he needs to. He's a human. He's not an elf. In fact, Mac is the only non-human that is um, in the room um, from the folks that are part of the village at this point.
So
Um,
Mac is the first fellow that came in.
yes, yes.
Elmo, what does he look like?
Elmo, he looks like he could be a blacksmith. I mean, he's in his 20s. He is very strong, kind of 6'3", 6'4", broad-shouldered. Uh, he has kind of a quiet demeanor about him. Um, he seems a little bit more serious than you might expect someone of his age to be, as though he either um, kind of takes his responsibility of being on the council very seriously, or that he had um, some responsibility thrust on him early, and he's just sort of grown into it. Um, and Mac seems to be kind of the life of the party. He's the one that, um, kind of as the dwarf and sort of the one that's been around the longest, he's probably seen more than everybody else has. So maybe that's given him some perspective. But uh, Tuck, the cleric, is rather quiet and doesn't speak much, and Zert, um, by virtue of the fact that he's away from town for long stretches of the time, he is more inclined to answer questions than to start conversations. Um, but he's civil and pleasant enough. They all seem like pleasant enough people, but they just most of them seem like, okay, we have a job to do, um, and so they kind of want to get down to business. Mac is the only one that really seems to kind of want to make small talk.
So as far as insiders and outsiders, it sounds like maybe uh, Mac, I guess is his name, is kind of the the town representative, and the other three fellas, one of them's from is kind of the town scout fella. That's Zert, and then Elmo and Tuck are kind of like visitors or possibly adventuring possible recruits the same as we are. Is that kind of correct?
Not exactly. Elmo and Tuck and Mac are all members of the village council. Um, Zert is they practically speak to him as though he is a member of the village council, but he is the woodsman who kind of watches for dangers and stuff outside the village.
Okay, I'm just getting a feel for the ones that know their way around town pretty much, and who might be new to the town.
Yeah, as they talk, you get the sense that Mac has been here for, I don't know, he's been here longer. He's been here longer than the rest of them have all been alive. Um, Certainly 50, 60 years, maybe even longer than that. Elmo was born and raised here. Um, Tuck was assigned to the All Faith Shrine by his clerical order here, so he's been here for over 5 years now. And Zert has been in the area for about 15 years. Used to live in the town, but then after his family died, he has taken to um, being more on his own out in the woods and just coming into town when he has news for the council.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
So,
what they're are they acknowledging us, or are they just talking about the goings on, and we're just kind of listening, or
uh, no, they introduce themselves to you, and Mac tells them as they walk in that the uh, barkeep Nira had said that um, these two here are looking for adventure. Thought they might be of some use to us with the news that Zert has. Um, so I guess it's just going to be the three of us representing the council. The rest of them, um, they take uh, they take Zert's news about as seriously as they take everything else. If it interrupts their own plans, they don't have much interest in it. And Elmo says, "Yes, I'm afraid so. We told them that Zert was coming and that he had news, but they said oh, Elmo, you go find out. You'll tell us at the next council meeting. They don't want to be bothered." And Tuck kind of shakes his head and says, "It's a pity. One of these days, there's going to be news that they will need, and hopefully, they won't be too late when they find out." And Zert kind of sits there and he's filling his pipe. Um, and he takes a little twig from the fireplace and lights his pipe, and he starts smoking it. He's not. engaging much in conversation. But he kind of looks over at the two of you and nods. And then Max says, "So, lads, join us. Have a seat at the table. We'll be taking our dinner. But until it gets here, uh, tell us a bit about yourselves. What brings you to Dale? And what's your interest in the uh, work that we might have for adventurers such as yourselves?"
So I look over at John like, you want to tell?
We were just traveling, and we're always just looking for a bit of fun. I guess that's the best way to put it. Isn't that right?
Hmm. Zert kind of looks over at the two of you and he smirks a bit. And he says, "Well, I suppose some would find it fun. Um, the citizens of the town won't like it much if there's monsters running out of the woods with spears that they want to stick through their wives and children. Uh, so, but if that's your idea of fun, then yes, I have news that may be of interest to you." And
Well,
go ahead.
well, let's hear it then. Let me get this keg of ale that you had ordered. We brought in here, and if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and pour myself a glass as well. And my good friend here, John, would you like some?
Yes, please.
So I kind of tip the keg over and to the side and pour John and I some ale and kind of cock back in the chair, not putting my feet up on the table or anything, but lavishly kicking back to hear about the town.
Okay. All right. Well, he says, he says, "Gentlemen, there's problems over by the old moat house. Um, now we know that that place has lain in ruins for 50 year or more, or at least that's what Mac says." And Mac nods and he says, "Yep." He says, "It was about 70 year ago. There was some there was some sort of a cult that was in the area, and um, they started to use that as a base of operations. The Baron that lived there had somehow got mixed up in it. I don't rightly remember what all their cult was going on about, but the usual stuff. They were consorting with demons and making sacrifices of farm animals, and the last straw was when they uh, stole somebody's kidnapped somebody's child, and they were going to have a human sacrifice. Well, we weren't going to stand for that, so we ran him off and razed the place to the ground. And it's just been left as a ruin ever since. Nobody wants anything to do with it because everybody's superstitious the the bad karma or the bad spirits that may have been left behind from those cultists. So they just stay away. And and our friend our friend Zert says, "Well, looks like somebody has decided not to stay away now. I've been tracking movements out around that area. I've seen a couple of a couple of patrols. They haven't seen me, and they've been heading off towards the road. And I noticed one time um, they brought out a chest that looked like it was probably a chest from some merchant caravan or something. And they were going through that, and one of them took uh, some coin and a couple of bits of armor and some bolts of cloth and put it on a wagon, and they headed off uh, away from away from the village. So not sure where they were going with that, but I'll wager anything that those weren't goods they bought and paid for. Probably stole them from some people. And Elmo says, bandits. That's just what we need. And Max says, yeah, bandits around all the time. You get the first thing that you get after you have a caravan is you get bandits that want to try to pillage it.
So
And
Devlin kind of kicks back a little bit further in his chair, and a big smirkish grin comes across his face as he folds his hands, clasps them together behind his head with a kind of a wry grin, and goes, "Well, it looks like you've run into a little bad luck, and there might be an opportunity for you as well as us to make a dent in this problem that you're having. Uh, Sounds like you might be in the market for some fine, powerful adventures, such as my good friend John and I. We've been out on the road for many a years, quelling many a beast, dragons that we slew in our towns prior, and John is just a wizard with his swords, and I just stand back in awe sometimes just to get my entertainment from watching his the world of wonders it is to watch him fight. So, if you would like to make a proposal on what might benefit us in this adventure, and how we might make it worth our while to help your town out, I'm sure you would be willing to expend a little bit of coin to rid these the marsh area of the bandits you're having trouble with. He takes a big swig of his ale and sits back with a smile and looking at him like, okay, so what are you going to offer?
and Zert, he kind of cuts his eyes as you're talking, and he sort of looks over at Julian's character, and he kind of looks him up and down, and you talk about the swords and
I kind of whisper over to him and give him a nudge and flex, man, flex.
I
and
flex as hard as possible.
and Zert just sort of he seems um a little doubtful uh that John's prowess might be coming from his uh, sword. Nonetheless, he nonetheless he does you know he does seem to kind of nod a little bit, and um, Elmo almost doesn't have any expression at all as you talk. Um, Tuck kind of silently glances back and forth between Zert and Elmo. And then when you finish, Mac uh, slaps a hand on the table and says, boy, that's a great story. And maybe one day it'll be true that you can say you done all those things. But by the look in your eye, I'm not sure how much of those things you've actually already done or all those things you both plan to do. Nonetheless, you are right. We need some help. And if y'all are willing to put put your skin on the line. Well, we maybe can see what it is that we can we can offer you. But Zert, I think there was more to your story from what news you had to bring us here tonight. And Zert said, "Yes, yes, there is. You remember those reports we've had over the last couple of years with the monstrous humanoids uh, showing strange behavior, where we've seen um, orcs and goblins on patrol together, where we've seen gnolls in the company of goblins, normally bands of monstrous humanoids that would sooner tear each other apart than share the same campfire. Not only are they patrolling with each other in what we've seen, but they're wearing similar uniforms and they all have that one device, that one symbol that we saw in those two captives we took about a year ago. And Elmo nods and he says, "Yes, yes." And Zert says, "The problem is, these bandits I've seen, they're wearing the same symbol." And Tuck says, "Well, that certainly is not good news." And Mac smacks his mug down on the table and he says, "Bargle be damned."
Could you describe the symbol to me?
Uh, well, yes, it's a five pointed five pointed device, um, and it's got inscribed within it a box, not quite an even box, but a little off kilter box, and then there's some splotches, dark splotches arranged in a pattern within that box. I think maybe eight of them. Um, and there's like little threads connecting those eight splotches. Um, so yes, not. It's kind of a curious device. Not anything we've seen before. Nothing that Tuck has been able to identify as belonging to any of the um, evil deities. So we're not quite sure what they're up to, but um, it's some sort of a it's some sort of a device, and they all claim to follow someone that we know all too well, a man who calls himself Bargle. Um,
Who is Bargle?
well, Bargle used to be a resident of these parts. Um, he was a practitioner of the magical arts, and when he moved to the area some 20 years ago with his new wife, uh, he brought a great deal of benefit to the village. Um, he had quite the knowledge of engineering, and so he helped with shoring up some of the buildings that needed a little bit of repair. Um, he was handy with um, alchemy, and so he was able to help brew some potions that uh, helped some of the farmers with some issues they were having at the time with some blight on the crops. And then he even had a bit of skill with metallurgy. And so he worked with the blacksmith to help make some very, very fine weapons at the time. And he would occasionally take trips out of town, off to research, either um, to one of the big cities or out into the wilderness. And while he was gone, one of these times, maybe 5 years after he had arrived, and when he and his wife had started the family, they had their first little one. Um, there was an accident at their home. A fire um, happened at their home while Bargle was away, and it was in the middle of the night. And by the time the neighbors woke up, heard the screams, and tried to help, the fire had taken both the wife and the child, and neither one of them survived. So, of course, we sent word, and Bargle came back as quick as he could. Um, and he went through the remains of the house. Um, he swore he would stay in the town, and he did rebuild. But he was never quite the same. No, not the jovial um, and helpful man he had been before. He was more quiet, more withdrawn, um, and very introspective. Um, he didn't seem to want to associate with people much after that. Uh, and then there came um, some of the dark doings around town. Things would go missing. Um, People would wake up in the morning and animals would be slaughtered. Um, there would be uh, buildings that would get damaged by um, sudden winds out of nowhere. Um, and then there was the night that all of the uh, stars fell from the sky and landed in the woods. Thank goodness they didn't hit the town, or else no telling what would have happened. But there were little stones that fell out of the sky with big streaks and landed in the woods. Put Some of them put holes 2 feet deep in the ground. Uh, and then there was the monster. One night, a monster went rampaging through town, killed a person at 3 different houses, and at first, Bargle was hailed as a hero because his magic was able to banish the monster and stop the monster. But then he admitted, after we did some investigation and some questioning, that he had actually been the one that summoned the monster. You see, ever since his wife and child died, he had been looking into what lies beyond the grave, and if it were possible that there could be life after death. And in his investigations, he consorted with dark powers. And one of these dark powers was a demon that had promised Bargle that he could show him the secret to living beyond the grave and even bringing back those who had died. But one night, when Bargle summoned him to learn what he could, the demon tricked him, and Bargle made a mistake, and the demon escaped the magic circle that Bargle was using to confine him and went tearing through town and killing and destroying in his wake. We all understood Bargle was upset, but we asked him to stop his line of research. He assured us, he assured us that he knew what had went wrong and he knew how to prevent it from happening again. And he made it clear that after offering to pay compensation to the families that had lost loved ones, and he made it clear he was going to continue his research. So, as the council, we had to take a strong decision. Um, we sent we sent to the capital in case we were going to need any backup, but we told Bargle that if he was going to continue his investigations, he could no longer live here. We didn't want him um, being a part of the town, and we were ready to call out the militia if that's what it took to make sure he left. He wasn't too happy about it. Weren't too happy at all. But in the end, he knew we were resolute, and he didn't want to challenge his luck against the militia. So he packed up everything he owned and he left. And we haven't seen him since. Then, like I said, 2 years ago, these strange goings on with the monstrous humanoids and them claiming to serve Bargle. I don't know. I think something's coming, and I don't think we're going to like it.
Do you remember the name of the demon that Bargle summoned?
And Mac shakes his head, says, "No, I'm not even sure if Bargle told us what it was. If he told anybody, he didn't tell me. And honestly, I didn't want to know. It just shivered to the core thinking of that awful thing, the unnatural look that it had, its wings that surely couldn't fly, but were hideous nonetheless, arms that seemed grotesque, and the teeth, the awful, awful teeth, just drooling. I don't know, acid, poison, whatever. Horrible, hideous thing.
Is the house that Bargle stayed in, is it still up? Is it unoccupied?
And Elmo shakes his head and says, "No," says, "in those days, my father held the chair of the village elder, and he proposed, and the rest of the council unanimously agreed, that after Bargle left, the place should be razed to the ground, not one stone left standing on another, and even the foundation ripped up and taken out of town and tossed beyond our borders." And so it was done. And in its place, there was just a just a empty ground for some time. And it wasn't until maybe a couple of years ago that um, those two came in town and had their idea of building a new keep, and part of the land where they want to build the keep is over the ground where Bargle's house stood. But there's not been any disturbance since then, and we certainly never found a cellar or anything like that. So it didn't seem any harm um, in having them use that land.
So probably the base of operations is the marshy area. Am I wrong in that?
And Zert nods his head and says, "That's what I think." Now, Elmo had said that he would come out with me and look. Um, and he said if we found any adventurers, we should have them come with us too. Um, and we can go and have a look um, at this area. Uh, my goal and what I have recommended to the council would be if we can take either a small patrol or one of the bandits on their own, capture them and question them and try to find out if Bargle is there or if he's not, where he is located. Um, as I said, his monstrous humanoids, um, his gnolls, his goblins, his orcs seem to be um, ranging farther afield than just this moat house. But the moat house would be a bad place to let them gain a foothold because they could easily start attacking the road, um, start disrupting commerce, or even launch an assault against the village from there.
I understand. Since you've been seeing these monstrous humanoids and the bandits, I know you mentioned that there was a chest or something of that something like that that they were carrying. Has anything else gone missing since?
Well, you know, they since time began, the caravans always occasionally will get robbed, and the road along the woods between here and the keep has always been notorious. Um, at first, At first, it seemed like maybe this was just run-of-the-mill bandits, but once I noticed the similarity with the uh, monstrous humanoids and um, remembering that they were connected to Bargle, it's I'm thinking that perhaps um, they're starting to get more organized. It could be that if we don't stop the bandits now, it could be that we could have orcs or ogres or goblins or even worse um, taking up residence at that moat house. And, bandits hitting a caravan is one thing, but if a caravan were ever attacked by a band of ogres, that would be horrible indeed. It wouldn't be just the goods that were at stake. It'd probably kill everyone in the caravan as well.
This is out of character. Um, that symbol or device that they talked about. Could I roll a knowledge check on that device?
Yeah, yeah, you could. At least the description that you have.
Okay, that sounds good. And that's just a D20. I'm
Yeah, D20, and let me just double check your skills here. You'd be looking at it kind of to see if there's any kind of occult connection, basically.
yes.
Okay, all right. So that'd be D20, and your intelligence then is 17. So you'd be basically looking at 19 or under as a successful roll. 14. Okay. Well, from what you've heard, they described that it was um, the outside of it seems to be a five-sided shape, and you've heard of pentagrams, and pentagrams have the five sides usually inscribed within a circle within a star, um, but you have seen those symbols um, taken out of context. They almost always have something to do with a demonic power. So, because uh, five is kind of a perversion of the perfect four or the perfect three that some religions usually talk about. And so there tends to be demonic connotations with a five-sided figure. Um, and then it strikes you that depending on how the pips or dots would be arranged within it. They mentioned 8 of those, and they mentioned little thread-like um, devices. And it comes to mind that spiders have 8 eyes, and so that's basically something that you can um, something you can gain from their description. You'd probably have to see one of these devices to get more than that right at the very moment. But that's a little bit of what you get.
Okay,
It's
I
law. It's
understand.
law.
Yes, quietly under my breath, I relay what I think it could be to Devlin.
And okay, I'm gonna just let Mac here have a d20 roll on his. Um, okay, d20 roll on his intelligence or his observation. Okay. Yeah. He kind of notices that you're mentioning something to Devlin, and he says, "Oh, lad, if you know anything, speak up."
I tried to say it quietly to not alarm anyone, but the way that you described the device to me, it sounds like it has something to do with uh, maybe a demonic force or presence.
And Elmo, Elmo looks over at Tuck and nods and says, "Well, Padre, looks like you might be right about that." And Tuck says, "Yes, when I had heard about the device, I thought of demons too. Of course, the town itself has the knowledge that um, Bargle had been consorting with demons, so that would make sense. But I would be very interested if you all could bring back one of these devices. Um, perhaps I could study it and find out something, or if I don't know, I could make a copy and send it off to uh, my brothers and sisters uh, through the churches in the capital, and they may know more about what this represents. Of course, it's entirely possible that it's just something Bargle thought up out of his twisted brain, but um, almost always there's some symbolism uh, when someone takes a device.
Oh, my good fellow, what would you say if we were to obtain something of a symbol of this device or something that might have it on there and we brought it back to you? What would it be worth?
And Elmo says, "Well, I'll I've got an interesting proposal that a couple of the older councilmen have uh, have mentioned to me. Um, Mac, they've been talking for years about that damned moat house, and people have said that um, they should either tear it down or they should use it. And as you say, too many people from the village are too superstitious about it. But I think maybe we have something of an opportunity here." And then he looks at the two of you and he says, "This moat house is a few miles outside of town, um, close enough that coming back and forth to town for supplies would be not an onerous burden, far enough away that people who are conducting their own research or want to be left alone could could do so, and also located at a strategic point that could help to be a little bit more of a guard against the encroaching of the wilderness. So, what we had thought is if someone can clear this moat house out, um, we might be able to find the deed for it and turn that deed over and perhaps give some aid in reconstruction. So, would you all be interested in owning a moat house?
Sure. More problem.
Yes, it could be a good base of operations for adventurers. Hire a few retainers, uh, get some folk to care for the place while you're away. Um, and we have a good supply of stonemasons here in town who've been brought to the city to work on, brought to the village to work on the project uh, that's happening over on the west side. When they're done, they'll be looking for more work. So have a ready supply of workers to help with the reconstruction as well. And then, of course, if there's any treasure to be found and we don't, we aren't able to identify who that treasure rightly belongs to, then that could also be part of a reward.
I
And
like the sound of
you
that.
and you of course would be willing to foot the payment for this stonemasons and things to help with the reconstruction as part of a bill for our services, correct?
And Mac gives a grin and he says, "Well, lad, we certainly won't be paying for all of it, but yes, it would be a help to the town to have that uh, moat house rebuilt, fortified, and occupied by allies of the town. So it would be in our interest to help with some of the payment. Now, we'd have to negotiate with the stonemasons for their rates and see what's in our budget. But once you all start slaying the dragons and killing the monstrous humanoids, you'll be finding all sorts of treasure, and you can certainly help to pay some of the cost out of your hard-won booty.
No, of course. I was just seeing how agreeable you were to our contract, our deals, our propositions. So we would be helping you. So we assume you would be helping us to not only better our interests, but to better your.
And uh, Mac smiles and he says, "Well, yeah, you you might be able to negotiate better than most people with some of the merchants in town. They think right along the lines that you do. Um, they're always trying to find out how they can get the better end of a bargain. Maybe if they ran into you, they would find themselves on the losing end. uh, more more often than not. And he kind of chuckles at that. He says, "But most folk around here are honest, and we appreciate what can be done. But we're talking about what might be after the moat house is cleared. I think the first job is to see it cleared, find out what we're dealing with, and see if we can get any more information on where we can find this Bargle and just how powerful he has become."
So it sounds like we have a bit of a bargain here. What do you say, John? We're going to follow one of these gentlemen out to or one of their hirelings out to the moat the moat house and see what we can find out and discover. Does it sound like something that we should partake in?
I think so. The potential for profit is high, and I'm very curious about all of this, all of these symbols that the gentlemen here have talked.
And the best symbol of all, of course, is the symbol they stamp on each coin, right?
Of course,
um, Mac Mac laughs at that, and Zert says, um, "And you're coming too, Elmo, right?" And Elmo says, "Yes, I plan to come. You still plan to leave at first light in the morning?" And Zert says, "Yes, I think first light will be well." And then Tuck um, uh, pulls up a satchel and he says, "My duties, of course, are at the temple, so I will not be able to go. However, um, I can send along um, some things to help." And he pulls out he starts pulling out some vials. And he takes a pair of vials and he slides them over towards Elmo. He takes a pair of vials, slides them over to Zert. He takes a pair of vials, slides it towards you, Devlin, and he takes a pair of vials and he slides it towards John. And these vials contain a red liquid, um, and they have a symbol of one of the religions on there, and it's one of the more popular religions across the empire. So it's one that you know whether you're a religious person or not, and it's the symbol of Saint Cuthbert, um, who is was a the legends say Saint Cuthbert was born as a human and um, did great service to the gods and great service to mortals, and was rewarded at the end of his life with being ascended to the rank of a demigod. And then, as he attracted more and more followers and more worshipers, he's now venerated as a full member of the pantheon. Um, so, um, Saint Cuthbert is the one whose symbol is on these potions. And Tuck says, uh, "From my church, I can offer 2 potions of healing for everyone. Um, if you suffer any grievous wounds um, before you die, you can drink that. It will um, either neutralize a poison, uh, or it will heal injuries that you have suffered. Um, and there are many different creatures that deliver very dangerous and venomous poisonous bites. So hopefully you will not have to use them, but you have them just in case." So you guys can both put in your inventory that you each have 2 potions of healing.
Well, just real quick, 2 potions of healing, and each potion is good for one use.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Thank
All
you,
right.
good sir. That'll come in quite handy. I appreciate your bid to our success.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm very glad we can we can that the church can be of some service. And let me just go ahead and double check for your notes in um, this particular version, a potion of healing. Um, it'll actually do one of 3 things. It either acts like the cleric's Cure Light Wound spell, so if you drink it, it will restore 1d6 plus 1 lost hit points. Um, or it will cure a poison. So if you've been bitten by a poisonous spider or a venomous snake or wounded by a poison weapon, it will neutralize the effects of the poison. It does not restore any healing or any hit points in that case. It can also be used to cure paralysis. But again, if it's used to cure paralysis, it does not heal any hit points. So it will heal one of 2 conditions or add hit points, but it won't do multiple effects with one.
I got you.
Yeah.
Got those in my handy dandy large set.
Okay. All right. So we've been going for a couple of hours. So I propose that we take a little break. We'll take about, it's just about the top of the hour. So let's come back at 10 after, and then we will go on. Um, I do probably need to wrap up around no later than 3:30 today, because today is the final game of the season uh, for the soccer team. Last last Saturday they had a makeup game, and this Saturday they have their normally scheduled last game of the season. Um, so I want to get out and do a little tailgating before that game. So if we wrap up around 3:30, that will be great. So I'll go ahead and put us on a little bit of break. I'm gonna run a little bit of music on roll 20. Um, so
So we will assume that we are basically free until the next morning, and
yeah,
John and
yeah. So
myself are maybe retiring in another room or another area in the corner of the tavern to discuss any details before we get a room and make lodgings for the night. You know.
exactly, and we'll talk about that as soon as we get back from break. Oh, whoops. I'm sorry. I've been sitting there for 2 minutes talking and didn't realize that I had myself on mute. Sorry. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. All right. Well, you missed the whole lovely discussion of the meal. Um, there was some roast mutton and a and fresh vegetables. There was a nice peach cobbler for dessert. Gertie came in from time to time to keep your mugs filled. You noticed that uh, Tuck did not drink beer or ale. Instead, he drank wine during the meal and had just one or two cups that he nursed during the evening. Uh, Mac um, Mac drained his tankard every time that Gertie was gone, and they kept refilling it. And he doesn't show any signs of um, having had any drink at all. It's just like water to him. But he seems to really enjoy it. Um, uh, Elmo and Zert both uh, drink moderately, but they keep it under control. And at the end of the meal, Elmo and Mac and Tuck all leave the inn ostensibly to go home, and Zert uh, goes out of the dining room and climbs upstairs and disappears upstairs, and you don't see him again. So now, what would you all like to do?
Well, John, how do you think we should play this? We do what we can here for them, and we find some magical items of interest for you, and we set up kind of a base of operations where we can see what might be able to uh, find some find some a place to invest for our future. A base of operations for me and you as well.
I think we should go with them to investigate for the reasons that you stated. It's it'd be good just to have a place to at least store excessive items or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that will work well. Are there any tools or equipment that you might need that while we have a bit of time that we need to maybe go to a trader or armor or anything along those lines?
I can't personally wear armor. I think I just need some time to memorize some spells, and
Oh,
then we
okay.
should be good.
Where's my
Okay.
okay, fine, let's see.
So, Gertie, Gertie will check in on you. Um, uh,
I kind of pull Gertie over to the side and say, "Well, it looks like I'm going to." I'm kind of whispering in her ear a little bit, you know. Looks like I'll be looking at other avenues of making money, at least at the time. But hold on to that I gave you, and we'll see if we might have an opportunity in the future. What do you think, there, young lady?
oh, that sounds wonderful. It'll be good to have it'll be good to have a friendly face around again for a bit. Um, it reminds me a bit of the old times. And she gives you
So
a wink.
so 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 what do you reckon we we I guess we find a room to retire to for the morning. What do you suggest? We find a quiet little room in the corner, or shall I join you in your room for the evening?
Um, and you're still talking to Gertie, I guess.
of, of course.
Yeah. Um, she says, "Well, I've uh, I've got uh, I've got some work of my own yet to do. So, probably if you find a room of your own, that would be for the best. Um, there are a couple of rooms available upstairs. Um, they're not all taken. There's a couple of sorts that some people that are interested perhaps in a game of chance over in one of the other private dining rooms, if that's something that strikes your fancy. Um, but I would be careful. The sort that I don't much trust. Um, they seem like they might not play with a uh, fair set of dice, if you get my meaning.
Well, far be it from me to accuse anyone of any impropriety. Uh, if it's all in good humor and nature, I mean, I would be willing to meet these gentlemen, and perhaps John here could keep an eye out for me as he either joins me or would just keep an eye on their sleeves, as it were.
Yes, I can be a witness, so to speak.
So Gertie, I'm a little short now. I've I've either got to make it over to the trader and reacquire my sword, or unless I gain a bit of money here.
Well, the trader, you want to you want to watch out for him. He's kind of a sour customer, and I don't much I don't much like the cut of his jib. Um, now, you and I have uh, worked together before, and we've worked to separate people from oh things that may not necessarily belong to them. Um, you might get the same sort of sense about the trader. The only problem is most of the stuff that he has would not be worth separating him from in the first place.
Now, just out of character for a second. Um, Now I had my starting equipment, and as you remember, I spent all my money on my equipment. So what I've done is, before this scenario started, I've gone to the trader and basically pawned my sword to give me money to give to Gertie for any of our business adventures or investments.
Uh huh.
But it was unnecessary. So at this point, I could get the money back and either take it to go get my sword back, or I could take it to the gambling hall. So
Yes.
so that's what I'm interested, I guess, in getting back my money, so I can either go gamble, try my luck at chance, or to go get my sword back.
Um. Well, Gertie. Uh. Gertie hands over um your purse, and it still has all the money in it that you gave to her.
I think
And
I think it had 10 gold in it.
yeah, yeah. So she gives back your 10 gold, and she says she says if that truly is all you have, then um you'll probably need to hope you win something from the games of chance, because you'll find that um, the trader is quite forgetful when it comes to the bargains that he has made, um, unless, of course, they are bargains that are in his favor. So, if he told you your sword was worth 10 and gave that to you, he'll probably want 20 to get it back.
Oh well, I guess I'll be doing a bit of gambling
All right. Okay, well, then, she
unless I
says,
want to scout the area with a blackjack.
yeah, um, she will go ahead and she will lead you over to the other private dining room, which is over here. And then she makes a little um, rap on the door, and um, and there's a voice that says, "Come in." And she opens the door and steps in, and she says, "Gentlemen, do you have another seat or two at the table for your game?" And there's kind of a smug-looking man over in the far corner, and he says, "Oh, by all means, yes, of course." Um, he says, "My name is Spugnor. Um, these are my companions, uh, Wendell and Fernock. Um, we're having a friendly little game of dice. Would you all care to sit down and join our wagers?"
So just the OOC here for a second.
Sure.
Did he? I know she entered or told me who they were, but can you go over that?
Okay, yes. This man here in the corner, his name is Spugnor. He appears to be the spokesman or the mouthpiece of the group. Um, he he looks kind of a little bit like a dandy. He's wearing clothes that are probably a little too fancy for a rustic village like this. Uh, you would place him. He would seem more um, at home. You think from his clothes in kind of the noble quarter of a large city. Um, and so it's a little unclear what he's doing out here. This Wendell over here, he appears to be dressed kind of like a drover or the driver of a merchant caravan, um, and he's kind of got uh, the rough the rough and tumble look of someone who um, kind of sits in the dust of the horses all day long. And then Furnock over here, uh, he seems like kind of a um, uh, tradesman or no, he seems kind of like a soldier of some sort. And you think that um, he might be at home uh, as a merchant's guard or something of that nature. And so they're sitting at different spots around the table, and there's a couple of chairs or two or three chairs open at the table for additional people to sit and play. Um, each one of the three has a pile of uh, mostly silver, slightly smaller pile of copper coins, and a few gold coins in front of them. Um, Spugnor appears to have slightly more gold coins than the other two. Um, eh, rough estimate, you would say that he maybe has a total of 30 gold in front of him. The other two maybe have somewhere between 10 and 15 gold total in
You
front of them.
said that is Spugnor the Dandy, right?
Yeah, the dandy has the more money.
Okay, so I kind of discreetly sleight of hand, Lee, uh, look at Gertie and kind of give her a wink and slip her like we'll say 2 gold pieces.
Okay. All right. And um, she nods and gives you a wink, and then she says, uh, "Gentlemen, any of you need some? Whoops, sorry, that was not the wrong character. Any of you need a refill on your beverage?" And
Well, let me interject here just a moment. Gentlemen, it's nice to meet you. It seems I've run into a bit of luck recently. Me and my traveling companion John here have done quite well as of late, and we. I know you're not from around here. I take it, right?
and Wendell nods and says, "Yep, caravans passing through on the way to the capital." And Farnock says,
I'm carefully paying attention to um, their replies and their actions.
and Farnock says, "Yeah, just merchant's guard with on the caravan with Wendell, um, passing through for the night. Thought shooting a few dice and having a couple of cups would help to pass the time." And Spugnor says, "Yes, I'm just passing through. I'm traveling with the caravan as it's convenient. I had some business to take care of in the capital, and so I thought I would travel with them. And these gentlemen um, wanted a game of dice tonight, so um, they indulged me by coming to this lovely inn for dinner and a game. And it's so wonderful to see you."
Well, as I said, I've run into a bit of luck recently, and just a bit ago, I've actually acquired ownership of the tavern and some other land outside of the tavern, and this my gentleman friend here, John, and I. We're looking for a bit of investment opportunity here. So we're looking to really expand here in the tavern and set up a bit of entertainment and things of that nature. So if you guys would be interested, we have a great business opportunity that I'm sure you would you appear way too intelligent to pass up. So for I would say for an investment of maybe 5 gold pieces a piece, I could cut you in on that, and would be very minimal risk or oversight on your side, but it would just reward tenfold on your investment if you guys would be interested. And by the way, Gertie, get these gentlemen a round of drinks on the house here, okay?
Oh, oh, why, of course, sir. We'll be happy to. And she gives a little curtsy, and she uh, walks off. And Spugnor says, Spugnor says, "Oh, interesting. I thought I saw old Osler around. Um, so he's had to sell the place then."
He's made a wise business investment in giving me controlling interest of the establishment. I let him run the place in my absence because I'm quite in demand in these parts.
Oh, well, so well-traveled man. Well, why don't we play a few rounds of dice? Tell us a little bit more about your investment, and we'll see maybe we'll see maybe about investing. Certainly, as a man who's always looking for an opportunity to um, have some additional income, uh, I would be willing to make an investment if it seemed um, like I might get a good return. Uh, and so he points to the table or points to the chairs and invites you all to sit down. And he says, um, he says, the game we've been playing is sevens. Are you familiar with it?
Well, no, I'm not a gambler. I'm just a business opportunist type of person. So you might explain the rules to me a bit, sir.
Okay, well, it's really quite simple, and it's a fun game, and it's one of the things that I love about the commoners is the games that they come up with. So in the game of sevens, we start each, or we take the dice, and he holds up two six-sided, normal cube dice, and he says the before everyone rolls, uh, we wager to see uh, who is going to roll the closest to a natural seven. Now, of course, if you do roll a natural seven on the opening roll, you automatically win the ante. That becomes your winnings, and then we start another round all over again. Presuming nobody rolls a natural seven, the person who is closest to the seven without being over um, then gets the opportunity to begin the bidding, to say how many rolls it will take them to get a natural seven. And then the bidding passes in order of uh, how close you are to seven, either over or above. And each person makes their wager for how many rolls they think it will take them to get a natural seven. Once we all have agreed on the amount of the wager and the number of rolls, uh, we then begin rolling. We pass the dice around, and the person who rolls a natural seven on the roll that they have declared wins the pot. If we all go past that roll and we still haven't rolled a natural seven, then we start the bidding again to see how much longer it will take us, and the pot will grow until somebody does hit the natural seven on the roll that we have declared, and we win the pot.
I'm game. John, do you want to play, or should you just observe?
I'll play a couple rounds. This sounds like a fun game of chance.
Okay. Um, okay. So the first thing that's going to happen is everybody is going to um, uh, make a wager. Um, and Spugnor says that he will start, and he pushes forward uh, two copper coins. Um, it seems that now that there's newcomers, it seems that he's going to be a little cautious until he sees how things are going to go. So he pushes forward two copper coins, and he says, I wager two copper coins that I will hit a seven on my first roll. Um, and both Furnock and Wendell take a couple of copper coins and toss them out. And then they look at you, Devlin, and they say, "The bet is to you. Will you meet it, or do you want to raise your bet?"
So let me get the conversion right. Uh, 10 silver and 1 gold. Is that right? And then is it 10 copper and 1 silver, or how does that work?
Yes, yes.
So 8 gold would be 80 silver.
Right? Or 800 copper.
Okay, and they're betting 2 copper.
Yes, they're each betting. Opening bet is 2 copper by the um, incumbent players. Okay, so they have each opened with 2 bet. You can either match that 2, or you can put in more, and then they would have to match it until everybody has an equal amount in. So basically, you can meet the bet or raise it at this point.
So I'm going to I'm going to push out there 5 copper pieces and
Okay.
kind of give a wink over to uh,
John.
Spagnar,
Oh,
just
okay,
like
okay,
a come on, man.
okay. Um, they look at that, and then they look over at John to see if John is going to match the um, 5 copper. Basically, if you don't match what the bet is, then you sit out this round. Julian, it's to you whether you want to put in the 5 copper, or whether you want to um, sit out and observe this round.
I'll put out the 5 copper.
Okay. All right. So Julian will match the 5, and then Spugnor and Wendell and Furnock, they all uh, toss out. Um, they all toss out 3 more, so everybody matches up to 5. Okay. So now what um, everybody can do is you can use the dice roller and just roll 2d6, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to do one. Okay, so Wendell gets an 8. And Spugnar gets an 11. And
I'll be taking that.
yes, unless somebody splits it with you, looks like you'll be taking it. Okay. And that was for Furnock. It gets a 5. Um, so then, uh, Julian, you can roll 2d6 for John and see what he gets. Okay. Well, that is 5 CP times 5 players. Uh, that is 25 CP to Devlin, and that's the end of the first round. Okay. So Devlin, you are now well 20 copper richer, so 2 silver richer. Um, and because you won, you now get to make the opening bet for the next round. So, how much would you like to um, bet that you'll get another natural 7 on your opening roll?
Oh, and this is just a bet for your opening roll. This isn't a bet for if nobody gets anything.
Well, this becomes the basis of the pot if nobody gets it. So the if nobody gets it this round, then the pot continues to build. If somebody gets it on the opening round, they get the winnings, and then the game starts over from scratch. Basically, this game goes until somebody gets a natural 7 on the turn that they call it. So it has the potential to be 1 round, or it can go, you know, if people just keep missing sevens, it can go, you know, 11, 12, 15, however many rounds until somebody gets a 7. And then ostensibly um, everybody can just call and not raise the bet. But if people do raise the bet, then that pot gets bigger every round.
Gotcha. I'm going to dish out. I'm going to push out there a silver piece.
Okay, feeling feeling rich. All right. Well, Spugnor, Furnock, and Wendell all put in a silver. So next game, um, Devlin and incumbents bet a silver to open. Julian, is John going to toss a silver in?
Yes, he doesn't want to be seen as a coward, so definitely he'll put the silver.
Okay, John puts in the silver. Okay. And then everybody will do their um, next roll. That doesn't work. Okay.
Devil kind of chuckles after he rolls.
Oh my goodness.
Jeez.
Okay, so Wendell's is a 9. Um, and then Fernox is an 8. So once again, Devlin wins. So round 2, Devlin wins 5 silver. Okay. And Spugnor Spugnor looks and says, "Hmm, very interesting. So tell us more about this business proposition you have. If if we invest, what was it you said, 5 gold? You certainly do seem to have a knack for um, uh, making money. So then, how do we make a return on our investment? What is your um, what is your dividend that you're offering your investors?
Well, of course, your dividend would depend on the share that you invested. If I figure 5 gold a piece would be a good starting venture. Um, Now, I would say we could tally up the books every week or every month, and depending on the percentage of the profit that we gain, he gives a big long speech of a book talk without really revealing a lot of information. I guess is what he's attempted to do. But
Okay. The
yeah,
amortization of the return on investment with the capital
yeah.
assets we have and the
Basically, to make it sound
depreciation.
like it's going to be a huge gain.
Okay. So yes, the old baffle 'em with BS thing, and he seems to follow part of it, and a couple of times he kind of you can tell he's kind of trying to figure out exactly where you're going with it, but he says, "Oh yes, that's very interesting. Well, let's play a couple of more rounds. I believe Devlin, you won the last round, so you have the opportunity to make the next bet again. Um, what shall we wager this time?"
Well, my pappy always said never lower your bets. So I say we go another 2 silver pieces. Or
Okay.
was it 2?
No, everybody put in one last time, so yeah, if you wanna
Oh, so yeah,
put it.
he'll push in 2 this time. He's like, yeah, I
Okay.
think we just bid 2 last time, so we'll just stick with 2. Oh, was it 1? Well, who's to quibble about such small sums? Let's up the ante just a tad. Why not?
Okay, 2 silver it is. All right. Round three. Devlin and incumbents put in 2 silver each. Um, Julian, you gonna uh, match the bet?
I'll match it this round as well.
Okay. Julian. All right. So everyone can go ahead and um, roll their 2d6.
Oh my God, the dice are loaded.
And then okay, yeah. All right. Well, once again. All right. Now you've got a full gold this time. Uh, that the pot. So whoops, round three. Devlin wins 1 gold. Okay, and Spurnock, uh, Spurnock, uh, you can tell he's a little perturbed by this. You you've won 3 rounds in a row, and so he goes to talk about the investments and things, and he picks up his drink and he takes a little drink, and then as he sets his drink down, he kind of has a little flourish with his hand, and he winds up knocking the dice off the table, and he says, "Oh, oh, oh, I'll grab those," and he reaches down and he puts the dice back on the table. Um, very smoothly, very deftly.
I look over at John and I ask him if he happens to have a dice.
Could you repeat that?
I kind of whisper over to you and ask you if you have a set of dice on you. I have playing cards, but
I have no dice, unfortunately.
hmm.
Okay.
Hey,
Well,
can you excuse me for just a minute? I have to go to the little boys' room. I'll be back in just.
uh, well, okay. Out of character would probably be an outhouse. They probably don't have indoor plumbing at this place. But yeah, and Spugnor says, hmm, "Sure," and he um, he just sort of picks up the dice that he had placed on the table, and he is just kind of fiddling with them in his hands, and so while Devlin is out of the room, he turns to John and he says, "So how long have you and your uh, fortunate friend been traveling together?"
For a long time. Who can say really?
Ah, yes, yes. Well, um,
I
certainly.
try to as quickly as possible go to Gertie and ask her if she certainly has a set uh, of bar dice that I could borrow.
And and she looks at you and she says, "Oh, your luck is running sour so fast."
No, I just think that I'm in for a turn of events and I want to be prepared. If you just quickly hand me a set of dice that I want to make sure that the tables are not unbalanced as it's so.
Oh, very well, very well. And so she does quickly hand you a set of dice from behind the bar. Um,
And he puts them in his sleeve, and I take a good close look at them to make sure that they would match with the set of dice that we're using.
yeah, they look almost identical to the set of dice that um, you had been using up until now. Um, and in fact, you wouldn't be surprised if the dice that they have been using up until now had actually come from the bar as well.
Perfect. Okay. So I just kind of put them under in my sleeve under the like the like a elastic band in my sleeve or something to easily get at them
Okay.
and make my way back in. It may be a little short, but I'll walk in and I'm like, well, my bladder isn't what it used to be. I didn't make it quite all the way to the outhouse. I just said, well, hell, I want to get back to you, gentlemen, and I found a convenient tree. So anyway, where were we? And I have a seat at the table.
And Wendell sort of cracks a smile, and he says, he says, "There's been times I haven't even had a chance to climb down uh, from the driver's perch. I just uh, pulled it out and weed right there in the tracks behind the horses." And he laughs at his joke. Spugnor looks a little um, like he has kind of a little sour look at his mouth at that, and uh, Farnock
Definitely
says,
gets a big boastful, if not overly overly joyous. laugh, laughter, big.
Okay. And and Furnock uh Furnock says, "Well, once I was on a caravan and some bandits attacked right when I had to take an awful piss. So after I cut one's throat, I just pissed on his corpse."
So I'm carefully looking at the table, and I think what's Spagnar, is that how you say it?
Spugnor, yeah.
Spagnar. He actually had the dice in his hand, right? That he retrieved.
Yes, yes, he
I mean,
has
he's
dice.
currently got them in his hand, right? Okay.
Yeah, he's currently got them in his hand. He's kind of playing with them, and so then he sets them down on the um, on the table, and he says, "Well, Devlin, your luck is holding. You get to call the wager for the next game."
Okay, excellent. House rules. I always go by house rules, and so as not to change anything up, as it were, we're going to bet another silver piece again to open it. So I'll throw a silver piece out there.
Okay, so um, round four um, is one silver piece, and um, they all toss in a silver. Uh, is John gonna toss in a silver as well?
I think I'm going to sit this one out and just watch the two
Yeah,
gentlemen across from us.
good maneuver. I was kind of like looking at you and just the slightest little bit shaking my head no.
Okay. Um, John, you're probably sitting a little closer to Spugnor. Uh, so you notice that the um, dice that you guys have been playing with the first three rounds, they're kind of um, a bright ivory color. Looks like they were carved out of ivory. Um, have a nice polish on them and everything. These dice um, are almost identical, but you could swear that the ivory of the dice that he picked up off the floor, or air quotes supposedly picked up off the floor, uh, are slightly darker. Um, you've spent a lot of time studying and researching um, fine details and examining things kind of up close, and a casual observer probably would not notice the difference, but you notice these look just a tiny bit darker than the ones that y'all had been using before. Now that you're really kind of keenly paying attention to that, so uh, I don't know if you want to say or do anything in response to that knowledge.
I'm going to wait until
Okay. All right. So everybody puts in the four, put in the silver, and everyone will roll. So Wendell 2d6. Um, Wendell rolls, gets an 11. Fernock 2d6. And he rolls, and he gets an 8. And Spugnor 2d6. And what do you know? Spugnor with his 2d6. Uh, he rolls a 7. Uh, and he says, Oh, well, finally, my luck is coming in. And
So it looks like my luck is changing. Wow, good show, my friend. And I pull the dice like I'm going to hand them back to him. Although I slip the dice out of my sleeve into my hand and hand him the dice I got from the bar.
okay, um, yeah, he kind of he grabbed for the money first, and he pulled that um, as you reached out and grabbed the dice, and so kind of as he's kind of watching you as he pulls the money over to himself, and then you put the dice back on the table, um, and he smoothly picks them up, and he starts playing with them in his hands, and um, and John, uh, you sort of notice that he kind of then looks at his hands, like like something doesn't quite seem right to him, or it doesn't seem like what he expected. Um, and then he then he looks
I just flash him a wry grin.
and he looks at his hand, and he looks back over at Devlin, and he says he says well he says Furnock and Windle, now, on the salaries that you all make, uh, is 5 gold the kind of investment that you would be able to make in a business venture? And they both look and they're like, no, no, we get maybe 2 gold a month in our salary. It's uh, all got to go back home to the wife. Uh, Barely have enough for a few uh, a few games of cards and uh, and a few games of dice and a couple of beers. Thank goodness the owner pays for the rooms and the meals. And so Spugnor says, well, as I thought, well, I'm growing a little tired of games, but I would like to talk to Devlin about this business venture. So, um, Wendell and Furnock, at the next town tomorrow, we'll go ahead and have more games. But I would like to talk business if you two don't mind. And they're like, yes, sir. Okay. And then they look at him and they pick up their coins and they say, thank you. Thank you for the winnings. And he says, oh, it's been my pleasure, gentlemen. Been my pleasure. And so they put the coins in their purse, and the two of them uh, walk out of the room.
So as before they leave, I'm kind of curious if that means that they're in or they're.
Oh, no, it's pretty clear that they're not interested in investing. They don't have the money to invest in your business venture. Um, and so they walk out and they close the door, and and Spugnor um, then um, takes the dice that uh, you handed him, and he places them on the table, and he pushes them back towards the middle of the table, and he says, "Very well done, my friend. Um, I don't like using my personal dice when I'm gambling with salt of the earth, like with the likes of the caravan guards. And you never want to take advantage of um, a guardsman who has a sword that he can put in your back uh, if you upset him. But when it comes to other charlatans, um, I have I have no problem using my dice. They have won me uh, many many hundreds of gold um, over the times that I have traveled the highways of the kingdom. Now, you may or may not have any legitimate business interest in this inn, but I do have a very legitimate business interest in my dice. And he sort of does a little thing with his sleeve, and two more dice that are identical to the bar dice fall into his hand. And he sets those on the table and he pushes those out into the middle with the other dice. And then he sort of spreads his hands um, towards the pile of gold coins that are in front of him. And he says, "What will it cost me to get my dice back?"
Well, certainly, among gentlemen such as ourselves, I wouldn't dream of accusing you of anything, and I'm certainly sure that you wouldn't do the same with me. As far as I've witnessed, it's been a fair game of chance here, and our winnings are totally.
And he says, he says, "My good sir," he says, "if you pick up those dice, you can tell that they are balanced just as all fair dice should be. But you know good and well that the dice that you picked up from the table a moment ago are not so perfectly balanced. You're clearly a man who is very good at deception. You even deceived me, and I waited until I thought I might need the advantage of my dice to bring them out. You, sir, have had the better of me this evening. All I ask is that I is that you return the two dice that you are now holding, and I will simply take them and leave the room. The gold here on the table is yours."
So I kind of cock an eye and look at the table to visually count out how much gold is sitting on it.
He's got probably about 30 gold there. And looking at his shirt, you can tell that a shirt like the one that he has is easily worth um 30 gold or more. I mean, this is a guy who clearly has a lot of money. Um, but out of game terms, um, he knows that you know that he had just brought a pair of loaded dice out on the table. He doesn't want anybody who's outside of this room now to know that he has loaded dice, but he wants them back, and he thinks it's a fair price to um, give you the remainder of the gold that he has in front of him. And
What kind of spot?
you're certainly not going to leave him destitute. You know.
Yo, yeah, I know. I understand. Um, so, so it seems we have a bit of a conundrum here. I really like these dice, but I don't want to leave you without your income as of sorts. I'm definitely not one to look down upon any source of living or income. I have a suggestion to uh, to solve our little situation. Instead of the full 30 gold pieces that you have there, what about I charge you just 20 and I'll return these dice and I drop them into my hand and set them on the table. And you perform some service for me in the future, perhaps. You become a good friend, and if you need me, uh, we're building an establishment. As I said, we are expanding our business dealings in the area, and perhaps if you're around, I might ask you if you would like to do a bit of business with me and John here to do more dealings mutually. How does that sound?
And he steeples his staples his fingers together, and he looks over his hands and he nods slowly. He says, "I like the way you think, sir. Um, an equitable trade now, and opportunities should they be mutually beneficial for us both in the future. That sounds like a fine proposition." And so um, he takes the 20 gold and he pushes the 20 gold out, and then he takes the two loaded dice and he brings them back. Um, he says, "My business often takes me um, back and forth to the capital. Um, you will find me passing through here, oh, at least 3 or 4 times a year. And if you address um, address anything to Spugnor and leave it here, they they always know how to find me. I have many friends among the caravans that pass through Dedale, so a message will reach me quickly if left here."
Excellent, my good friend. Let's
Oh,
all have a round.
okay. Well,
Gertie, can you bring us around?
and she happily does. Everybody has a nice toast. Um, Spugnor does seem to be um, a bit of a dandy. He's kind of um, a rakish type, but he also has um, a few tidbits of information. And I'm just going to say that you now have kind of a floating pool of knowledge. And at some point in the future, if you want to ask if you would have heard about something from talking to Spugnor, you can ask me and I'll make a roll, and we'll see if it's one of the little tidbits that Spugnor may have talked about um, during your conversation that you have some information about.
All right, good.
This sounds great.
Okay, wonderful. All right.
So we made
Well,
us a good new contact,
yes.
possible possible assistance for the future, and made a bit of cash, and
Yes, so you can add 20 gold to your inventory, Devlin, if you haven't done so already.
I did. I'm going to give 9 gold of that to John,
Oh, okay. All right. So, John, you can add 9 gold to your inventory.
and
Excellent.
in the morning before we leave, I'm heading out a little early, and I'm going to, just so that you know, I'm heading out, and I'm going to see if I can get my longsword back for 10 gold as opposed to 20,
Okay, that
because I
sounds
know they said
wonderful.
that they might double the amount.
Yes. Okay, well, we will start with that next session. Um, it's getting to be about 3:20 now, so I think be a good time to go ahead and wrap up for today. Um, I will go ahead and put together some notes this weekend and post those on the Discord. I'll do a PDF version of the notes, kind of recapping what we talked about, and then we will go ahead and meet up again next Saturday at noon. Um, we'll see. Hopefully, we have a couple of our other players that will be here and will be able to participate next week. And we'll talk to you all then.
So real quick, how many other players do we have, and how often have they been able to make it?
Well, of course, nobody was there, or nobody was able to make it last time, except I think Julian was the only person who didn't have any sort of conflicts. Um, but Elsie is one of our players, and then we also have a fourth player um, that has signed up for the game, um, and he had he had just moved um, prior to. I think it was him that had just moved uh, prior to the uh, first session, and then somebody had a power outage that week, and they weren't able to play. And of course, you
I,
had.
th- I thought it was him where he said he had moved, but then they didn't hook up the power yet or something.
Yeah,
You
yeah. I
know,
think I think that was I think that was him that had the issue with the power. So
I was just curious because it would be cool to have a couple more people
yeah,
to
yeah,
interact.
yeah. This edition of the game presumes that any adventuring party is probably going to have either some NPCs or retainers that accompany them. Um, but I do like the dynamics when you have three or four or five players, because then it makes the character to character interaction um, a little bit better. And you guys kind of start figuring out more things that you can do and where to go, um, which always gives me additional ideas when you all um, start when the characters start deciding how they want to drive the action. It gives me opportunities to come up with additional ideas. All right. Well,
All right, so hopefully we have a couple more show up, and it's it's gotten interesting.
yes, yes. So we're looks
Haven't
like we'll
left
probably.
town yet, but hey, it's definite start. We got
It's
we got
cooking.
our first mission. We got our base of operations that we will be working on eventually when we get something built there, and we got a couple in town contacts.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we're.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody, and for those that either have been on the stream or will be watching during the week, thank you for stopping by. And I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now. everyone have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next Saturday. All right, and we are out of Twitch. Okay,
All right.
guys. Like I said, I'm gonna get ready here pretty quickly and head on out so I can tailgate for this game. And I will talk to you all um, either on the Discord during the week. If y'all have any questions, just hit me up. Or if I don't see you before then, I'll talk to you next Saturday for the game.
So did you load? You're able to load those dice. So
No, basically not. There's possibly a macro that um, you could do, but I was just going to indicate him using loaded dice by like every second.
by his dice roll, but I was just
Every
getting lucky. I didn't know if
you
you
were
were if you were rolling those and adjusting my rolls for me, or if I was just flat out getting that lucky. That was pretty.
you were just getting that lucky. I was expecting that, a couple of the games would go um, a couple of extra rounds, and the pot would build up to like 2 or 3 gold before somebody finally won it. Um, it was pretty amazing that not only somebody kept winning the pot on the first roll, but it was always the same character. And it just fits in perfectly with your dynamic against Spugnor's dynamic. Um, how he was hoping to be the ones to swindle you out of some money in a game of chance, and you wound up um, sort of noticing his attempt and turning the tables on him just with pure luck.
Oh, it was all skill.
Yeah, it's all in the wrist. All
Yeah,
right, guys.
Devlin will never admit to any skill or any luck. And
All right, guys. Take care, and I will talk to you next week, if not before.
Sounds
all
great.
right, good game. Way to go, John.
All the luck was in your favor this time, Devlin.
Excellent.